I'm going to talk today about chain cases used to drive the pumps. The main purpose for the transfer case is to supply RPM and horsepower to drive the pump. Second reason is to increase the RPM. And the third reason is to support the impeller shaft. We're going to talk about the cases here by looking at the cutaway C20 transfer case. The transfer case is mounted on the back side of the pump, typical application. So the drive shaft comes in from the front of the vehicle, from the engine and transmission into the front. This shaft, the coupling shaft, goes out the rear of the case to the rear differential and the rear wheels to drive the truck down the road. The chain case was developed by Waterous. It is exclusive with Waterous. We developed it about 1973. With the gear case assembly, you have three gears. You have a drive gear, an idler gear, and a driven gear up on your impeller shaft. So three gears interfacing. If they're a spur gear, you're looking at one tooth engaging to transfer all the power. It could be a helical cut tooth. The teeth are cut at an angle. A little better transfer, a little bit quieter. What we went with is the chain drive. The reason we did that, transfer of power. The chain wraps halfway around the sprocket on the bottom, on the drive sprocket on the bottom of the case. So the interface from here all the way around to the interface on the other side. It's a better transfer of power. Okay? Each link engaging with a tooth on the drive sprocket to transfer the power around the sprocket more efficiently. Also does the same up on the driven sprocket up top. Right? So a more efficient transfer of power. Also very, very quiet. You don't hear gear whine that you typically get with a gear case. The other thing is durability. Very rarely have you had to replace chains. They're very durable. In the years I worked in the service department, I replaced only about a dozen or so chains over that time period. Different generations of chain cases. We started off with the wide chain case back in 1973. We used that until April of 2006. The case was all cast iron, weighed about 400 pounds. The case actually had an oil supply that was a supplemental lubrication system, suggested when we first developed the chain case. Because the chain and the sprocket go through the oil bath at such a high rate, it hurls the oil away from the sprocket. It doesn't get to the inside of the chain to lubricate each one of the links. So we use a method to get oil to the inside to be forced through the chain to help lubricate it. With the wide chain case, we used an oil pump. On the back of the driven shaft, there's a slot that drives the oil pump. So this oil pump operates whenever the main pump is operating. It draws oil up through a filter, up to the oil pump, puts to what's called the spray bar, and it shoots a small amount of oil on the inside of the chain. Helps lubricate the chain. As the chain goes over the sprocket forces the oil through the chain to lubricate each link. The C10 transmission was developed in 2006. Same footprint as the wide chain case, but we went to an aluminum material. So our weight dropped down to about 230 pounds. The lubrication system changed also. We went away from the oil pump. We're going to use a passive lubrication system. So there's a catch basin right here on the side of the cap. So as the chain comes around, it throws the oil into that reservoir, comes down through the holes, and then drops onto the sprocket, and again is forced through the chain by the interface with the sprocket. C20 transmission came out in 2009. Went to a smaller case, aluminum again, for the weight. The weight went down to about 165 pounds, so much lighter. We did change a few things on the case. We're still not using an oil pump, using the passive lubrication system. So there is a catch basin here. As the chain comes around, it throws the oil into that reservoir. But now, rather than having the hose like the C10, we have an internal passageway. There's a ramp that goes down, cast into the midsection. So the ATF goes into that, runs down the ramp, goes across on a trough with a hole drilled in it. So it goes across, drops onto the sprocket, lubricating the chain with a passive lubrication system. We also changed to a linear shift. The case is shifted off of this shaft, which moves inside the case to shift back and forth. The other thing we changed, we went to a bottom pan. So now there's a pan on the bottom which you can take off to inspect the inside of the case. Let's move to the C20 cutaway to see how it works and shifting from road to pump. So the C20 transfer case, mounted on the back side of the midship style pump. The drive shaft is coming in from the front side of the transmission, from the automatic and the engine. The drive sprocket freewheels on the drive shaft. There are needle bearings on the bore of the drive sprocket. So as you're driving down the road, the drive shaft is turning inside the sprocket. So in the road position, we'll push the collar all the way back into the back position. So the back half of the collar is on the coupling shaft. The front half will be on the drive shaft. And that's shifted back and forth using the shift unit. So right now, we're in the road position. Back half is on the coupling shaft, front half is on the drive shaft, one shaft running through the case to drive down the road. The drive sprocket has the hub of teeth, the same teeth as the coupling shaft and drive shaft that the collar will interface with. So to shift over into the pump position, we'll shift the case, push it over. So now the collar disengages with the coupling shaft or the rear shaft. It's back here. It's on the drive shaft on this side, and this half is on the teeth on the hub of the drive sprocket. So now when you put it in drive, you will operate the pump. The drive shaft turns. All right, let's go through a shift scenario. Come up to the fire scene. You stop the truck. Put your truck transmission into neutral. Set your parking brake. Shift the pump in your cab down into the pump position. Okay. Collar slides over, engages with the drive sprocket. At that time, you'll get a light in your cab, one light that says pump engaged. Second light will come on when you put it into drive. So you put it into drive, transmission goes to high range lockup, second light comes on that says okay to pump. You'll also get a light out at your pump panel that says throttle ready. At this time you have everything you need to operate. The pump is engaged, the automatic's engaged, you are in fourth gear lockup, and you're ready to operate the pump. Here's a typical shift scenario. Drive shaft coming in, coupling shaft coming out. You've got the drive sprocket, there's a hub of teeth on the drive sprocket. Right now the collar is in the road position. Switched over into the pump position, it now drives the pump. It will switch back to the road position, span the two shafts, and now you drive down the road. The chain cases require an ATF lubricant. The Y chain case and the C10 utilized 12 quarts of ATF. The C20 utilizes 6 to 8 quarts of ATF. On the C20, there's a sight glass here on the right-hand side, right next to your oil fill plug. On the Y chain case and the C10, it's on the left-hand side, just underneath the shift unit.